Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is David Novak. I subscribe to an email newsletter by Timothy Snyder. Timothy Snyder is a historian, and one of the topics which he has studied is the rise of fascism in the 1920s and 30s. And today's newsletter pertains to that. He writes, "We learn that violence that starts on one corner of the far right often ricochets. We find that the important threshold is the enabling of the violence. What we do afterwards counts the most. And none of this makes the outcome of a horrid act completely predictable, but it does help us to see how some things that will unpredictably be said might be helpful and untrue," and so forth. I've edited his statement down a little bit. So we've had a powerful act of political violence in the United States recently. And I am reminded that part of the far right project is to increase the levels of violence which our society is experiencing. I recall throughout the presidency of Donald Trump that he did everything in his power to try to raise the heat here in Chicago, and I believe his efforts have borne some fruit. So, as the election cycle heats up, I have to think a little bit about my place with this channel. Lately, I have been a booktuber, but this channel did not start out as such. Its initial impetus was because I was on Twitter at the time, and I wanted to tweet a poem, a video of a poem that I had written for Anthony Huber, who was murdered up in Kenosha. So that was about 4 years ago in August, I believe. And so I had to create the YouTube channel so that I would have a video to be able to tweet. And I did. It was a very poor video. It's still up if you go back to my oldest video. Later on, I did a re-recording of it, the poem, better quality, I think. And the video has, to this date, not stopped receiving, very rarely at this point, slanders against Anthony Huber from sporadic commenters. And so I did that, and then I decided to turn my channel into a vehicle for poetry, my own poetry and poetry of others, and I read individual poems, and that was mostly what I did for the period of the election cycle, because I did not want to be focused wholly on the election campaign between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and it worked. And there was the insurrection, and I think one of my last poems of my own that I posted, sort of a counterpart to the Anthony Huber one, was a poem now included in my book, Sheetrock Tabernacle, about the death of a woman who was amongst the mob, trying to break into the Capitol and breaking into the Capitol, trying to murder the representatives in the House of Representatives. And she was shot and killed. Ashley Babbitt, I think it was. And so at that point, I put the channel on hold. And it was just a year and a half ago now that I came back and decided to turn the channel into a booktube channel. Booktube is a corner of YouTube, so called, where people talk about books. And that has been its status of late. But with the election cycle coming around again, I noticed that different booktubers are bringing politics into their discussion. There was a live stream the other night by Steve Donahue, and I wish somebody would make an edited down version where they would cut out all of his talk about books and just focus in on his discussion of the political situation in the United States. He is very astute about what is transpiring. So I am not sure. 2 videos ago, I think I did a fireside chat, I called it, in which I talked a little bit about the political situation. I do not want to switch and become a political commentator. If anything, I want again to distract myself from the political situation. I am an old man and have had my say on most things, and my voice added to the mix will not contribute. On the other hand, as a good citizen, or as one who hopes to be a good citizen, I feel it is appropriate also not to keep silent. So I'm not sure how it will go with this. But one thing that I have decided that I'm going to do is that come the anniversary of Anthony Huber's death, I will give another reading of that same poem. I had to hunt a little bit. Fortunately, I emailed a copy of it to myself so I don't have to go into the basement and dig through the papers. And I will just read that poem again in honor of the young man who so gallantly gave his life. As I say, people on the right, and in particular Republicans and Trump supporters, have everything to gain by ratcheting up the violence during this campaign season. Violence is their ultimate objective. And so I just want to reiterate the call for peace and the poem which I read was in memoriam of Anthony Huber. And I want to just reiterate the greatness of his deed, of his not sitting out at the sidelines whilst great events were taking place in his country and mine. And he, unfortunately, paid for it with the ultimate sacrifice. And I believe good men like Anthony Huber need to be remembered. So, as I say, come the anniversary of his murder, I will be reading that poem again. I think. I mean, I might change that. So I am just leaving that here. My reading has slowed of late. We are in the midst of a bit of a heat wave. I think most of the world is in the midst of a bit of a heat wave, and this is the future. And so we all have to come up with new strategies to accommodate ourselves to these new circumstances. I have not figured out a good way, but as the temperature heats up, certain tasks still need to be done, and I get tired out more and wind up napping a little bit more, possibly, and something has to give, and so what gives is the reading. So I'm still continuing on with my 4 books, but at a snail's pace. I've not touched Euclid since I talked about it before. I'm making slow progress with Joshua Slocum, Stephen Runciman remains my mainstay, and then Henry Adams. It's been hit or miss because I withhold that till the last thing in the evening before retiring, and lately I have just been too zonked out to be able to push my way through a chapter of his. So that is sort of a status update of mine, and we shall see where things go from here. Thank you very much for stopping by my channel.